Hello, my name is Jeanette Thompson, and I am a resident of St. Louis, Missouri, born and raised. And I became a student of religious truth through a grandmother who taught me to know God. My families were displaced during the World War II, and that's how I ended up being under her roof. I had the privilege of being taught by my grandmother until age 12, 13, 14. It kept me on that quest and helped me to live the virtues that my grandmother taught. And the one thing that I think was the most helpful and significant was during the teaching of the stories in the Bible. And we were allowed to ask questions about why, where, what. And if she didn't know, she would say it. She didn't know. She always said, think for yourself or seek the answer in the Bible. So this started me on the quest of knowing who I am, why I'm here, and so forth. There were bumps and stops and starts along the way, but I always felt like I was seeking to know about the latest manifestation of God in this world, because by the time I got to nursing school as a nurse, I had joined several different denominations of the Christian faith. And for some reason, I didn't feel fulfilled spiritually. I felt an emptiness. It was a visceral hole in my spirit. But I would read my Bible like my grandmother had taught and say my prayers morning and night. And when I ran into difficulties, especially with relationships, I always felt like I wanted to retaliate with, when you had problems. And I thought, no, that's not good. Granny said, no, never do that. And she always said that when Christ taught the meaning of suffer the little children to come unto me, such as the kingdom of heaven, I never knew what that meant. She'd repeat it often. But I realized as an adult, she mean, be open to learning and believing with your own mind and soul. So as I grew and went through my professional training as a nurse, to believe that was an almighty God was the first time I looked into a microscope. And I saw these little wiggly things running around. And I said, nobody could have made this but a mighty God. These little amoeba, they called them. Just a drop of water. I couldn't see it without the microscope. And then the awesomeness of this microscope to look through and be able to see. All of these things came to me. Yes, there is a God. And we used to have what we call Vespers in our school. Now, it was open to anybody that wanted to come, and it didn't matter which faith you practiced. But of course, in my school, we were segregated at the time, so it was naturally all my community and different denominations of the same community. But it was nice. And the first time that I deviated from the upbringing of the Christian faith in terms of the denomination as a Baptist, because this is what my grandmother was, devout. My dad was Baptist. My mother and her family had been practicing Catholicism. So I did get introduced to Catholicism at an early age. And I was in awe of the awesomeness of the cathedral and the church. And they went up to the altar and they knelt, and all the practice that went into that, and the lighting of the candles. So when my mother passed and my dad went off to war, I was able to get more attention from my grandmother, and that's when the teaching really started. But I always wanted to go back and learn because it felt soothing, I should say, the Catholic Mass, because the Baptist Mass was very, lively. And the preacher was always very forceful in the preaching, which was okay at that time. People didn't go to sleep, that's for sure. But it was left a lot of questions for a child. But my grandmother was determined that we were going to get baptized. That was starting at the age of 8. I was baptized, submerged, because I had been christened as a baby. I understood from my dad and my aunt that I was christened in the Catholic faith as a baby. When I joined this steering committee called the Women of Faith in St. Louis, I used to tell them all the time, I got one foot in heaven already. I got baptized. I got sprinkled. But it was my spiritual journey, I realized at that time, to learn about why we should practice some kind of faith, and to polish that mirror for the virtues of the Spirit. It taught me to be empathetic, compassionate as well. And I often think about having been through this journey and some of the tests that I met, even as a young person, was necessary for me to find the Baha'i faith, that I was moving toward finding this Baha'i faith in time. Had I not been so well educated in the Christian faith like I was, I don't think I would have found the Baha'i faith. And I asked my mentor, her name was Jackie Quinn, who introduced me to the faith of Baha'i, why I hadn't heard of it before. Why? Because it was so wonderful. It closed that spiritual hole in my heart. And how I come to believe so readily that the words of Baha'u'llah was for this day, because it made sense. It made sense. It was relevant for me for this day. And I went on to start to read the writings of Baha'u'llah, and I said, yes, everybody should know about this. Yes, this is what he said now. Because I couldn't grasp after a while, you know, the Old Testament and all of the culture of that day that didn't parallel the culture of today. You know, to learn about God and his teachings and all. And I said, yeah. So before I was introduced to the faith, I used to say a prayer at night when I would read some stories. If I had some anxiety about something, or I would go back and read the story, the life of Christ, how he taught, what he said, and how he taught his disciples to deal with different cultures and people, and how and their testimony that he was from God, that had to be a hard sale back then in his day to the people like that. But anyway, I said to myself, I wonder if I would have known him or recognized him as from God if I walked the earth during his time, Christ's time here on earth. So I said to myself, Lord, if you come again before I leave this earth, please let me be one to recognize you. Yes, that was a prayer. And I didn't say it all the time, but every time it just would vote, Lord, where are you? So about a month later, I was working as a public health nurse with the county, and one of my colleagues was Jackie Quinn. Now, just to go show you how you make assumptions about people, she being a black person, born and raised probably here, blah, 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 I assume she was a Christian faith believer, and I was right, she was brought up in the Christian faith. However, she was a practicing Baha'i at that time. Now, I didn't know this, but I assumed that she was Christian. And we had to sign up for vacation time. And she signed up for November. Where are you going? What are you doing? I'm going to a conference in New York. I said, what kind of conference is that? What? And she says, it's a Baha'i conference. And so we couldn't talk religion on the job. And so when she came back from her vacation, she handed me this booklet that showed the conference in the Baha'i faith and what it was all about. And I took it home, and the words hit me like and I thought, wow, I gotta know more about this. I said, but slow down, Jeanette. You know, at that time, there'd been many so-called cults that had, anyway, and how they turned out, I thought, be careful. You don't want to get into something like that. But the more I read, the more I thought, oh, this is true. This is truth. This is truth. And so I said to her one day as we were leaving work, I said, what do you all do? And so she says, well, I said, this conference you went, it looks pretty interesting. She says, well, we're having a video of being shown at the library of this conference. And there will be other Baha'is there. And if you'd like, you can come. We're opening it up to. So I said, okay, let me check this out. I got there, and I tell you, I felt the air, the love came rushing at me. I truly did. I had never been went into a room of virtual strangers and got so much love thrown my way. And I mean thrown my way, because they all come up and, glad to see you, welcome, blah, blah, blah. Billy, I met Billy Mayo, that was the first, and you know, that soul is, she's special. And what impressed me the most was that Bill Gilmer, the musical director, he had gospel music in his repertoire in this video, and okay, they're not moving too far away from what I have come to know about Christianity and all. I said, so that sounds pretty good. I got to investigate this more. And right after I said that, she says, we believe that you should investigate for your own self. I thought, wow, wow. And so there began my being a seeker of the Baha'i faith and studying. And I tell you, the books that Jackie gave me, some answered questions, which I was glad to read, and the Paris Talks, God Loves Laughter. It was wonderful and I'd stay up late at night and having to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work. But here I was, 2 and 3 o'clock, I'm reading these books and writings, and I'm thinking, oh, this is wonderful. Somebody's got to tell the rest of the world. Yes, and this is what you, when I read the registration card, and all it said is that you believe Baha'u'llah is the messenger for this day. I said, of course he is. Yes, that's all I had to pledge. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody asked me to buy anything. I thought, wonderful. This is basic. This is what we need. Get back to basics. I said, yeah. And the more I studied, the more I was convinced that this is God's faithful today. So I said, I gotta join. It was less than, maybe 6 months I studied because I wanted to be certain. And meeting other Baha'is, and the one advice that my mentor Jackie gave me, she says, now Jeanette, we all come to this faith with our baggage. There are nobody wearing a halo or wings, okay? I said, gotcha. Because so many times, you know, personalities clash or you have this problem. I said, okay, I can deal with that. And that was the best advice because it said, I see you, I accept you as you are. They accepted me as I am. So that, wonderful. And I was so anxious to teach and was so disappointed when she said, we don't proselytize. I said, well, how you and you don't have preachers and you don't proselytize? What? You know, how do you make known this faith to others? And so we began to study the writings in that. I was introduced to the Women's Alliance was going on at that time. That introduced me to the St. Louis Interfaith organization. And then the Jewish Congregation of Women, Sherry Myth, had an endowment of some kind, and they started this Women of Faith organization. And they asked us to join, and we did. And it was a wonderful way to share the faith and teach. And the whole purpose was to share each other's faiths, learn about the faiths and all this. And we started to have these conferences. And I made many friends from the different faith groups by becoming a member of the steering committee of the Women of Faith. And the whole purpose of the Women of Faith organizing, at the time we had a group that we were organized, we called it the Women's Alliance, Baha'i Women's Alliance. And our purpose was to join into activities that were important to the interfaith collectively. And we would participate in that, especially when things like 9/11 happened and a Jewish cemetery got desecrated by all kinds of things like that. We would join in, or we would join them in prayer for others. And it was wonderful to get the word out that way. We made lots of friends, and we're still active. And I totally fell into that, which was great. And the other thing was the Parliaments of the World's Religion. That again, Jackie was instrumental in bringing that to my attention. Gathered all of the faith traditions, spiritual, otherwise, were invited. And wonderful, this is it, yeah, this is it. So we went to Chicago, and I was in awe of what I learned about faith. And I said, yes, well, this has to be the one faith that's bringing us together. All right. And it was just so awe-inspiring, hopeful. That's what, and it closed up this hole that was in my spirit. I said, yes, I'm on the right path. After the first introduction to the Parliament that year, I said, And they said, well, we'll do it again in 5 years. I said, I'm going. I gotta go. And I realized that that would be the global connection that we needed in order to unify the spiritual aspects of humanity. So after that, I went to everyone that I could. I only missed one in the. It was awesome to see this committee work so hard, because that was a big job to find a place in the globe, on this earth, that was not in a war, and they did fantastic job. So I went to Barcelona, Spain, Australia. I attended the 2015 in Utah, and I attended the one in Toronto, and then and the last one here was in Chicago again. This was like a reunion type parliament, because I met so many of people that I had met before, and it was wonderful to see. But the most wonderful thing is the progress that we made with the interactions and connections, and getting some of the problems, the global problems, not only the water situation, but the global things that affected all of us, like the climate change. And all of these things come together, and the people were of one mind that came together. What can we do? And that's the only way we're going to be able to solve these kind of issues that affect all of humanity, is to come together in this kind of setting and offer the resources and the minds and the science and so forth. Because all of these entities were involved. Education, science, media, all of these entities were involved in trying to bring together and collaborate and consult. And things have been improved in a lot of areas of the world because of the Parliament. And the greatest things is to changing the hearts of men, to make them understand that we need each other, and that all of us have to work together. That's what I take from it, besides the wonderful friendships. I've had the bounty of attending a pilgrimage, or being on pilgrimage 3 times. The first time, after I signed my pledge to become a Baha'i, I wrote to that's how anxious I was to see it, because after I learned where the administrative order was, truly, and this beautiful on Mount Carmel. And see, I had learned about Mount Carmel as a Christian. And I said to myself, well, God don't make no promises he don't keep. So it has to be. So that was one of the other things that pushed me toward becoming a Baha'i, because I could have to go there. That's the Holy Land. That's the place where everything took place. So I signed up for Holy Land. And I think I went 2 years later. I was able to go to Holy Land with other Baha'is from my community. And I was in awe of it. It was, as I began to share the faith with others, especially the Christian members of my family, it was difficult for me to bring it together and say, look, people, this is what he promised, and here it is. He's not saying forget Jesus. He says, if you know Jesus and know what his word meant, this is what he said, you will see things better than I have. You will do things better than I said. The second time, I believe, was 2019. And that was very, very significant for me as well, because I'd hoped to take my son, but things didn't work out. But it was a refreshing to my soul to have to go there again, to the shrine and all, and see the building of the shrine for Abdu'l-Baha. Yeah, the place where that would be and all. And they had started it, but And so I was grateful to be able to be the first ones to see it. I've been so blessed, so privileged, so blessed, I feel, to be able to do all of this. I joined an ad hoc group of Baha'is that were planning on having a center, the Majidis and all, and Mrs. Velma Sherrill, all of these people. And so we met and decided, you know, what we would do in order to get this center. Now, there had been a center in St. Louis, but it had not been sustained. But we started out by having informational booths set up in different areas. One was at a carnival in Webster. Another was in a mall. And the other one was Soulard. Yes. We set up a booth there. And we'd go on the weekends to be there and pass out material about the faith and invite people who seemed interested to firesides. And I thought, this is good. This is a good way. But I found that people who even showed a microscope of interest at all were hesitant about coming to someone's home for it. So when we discussed it, I thought, we got to find a better way. Thankfully, my job was coming to a close because I was not happy. I was not fulfilled as a nurse. Not to say happy, but I wasn't fulfilled as a nurse doing the job that I thought I should be doing with that institution, because the institution was more involved in what the institution needed rather than what the client needed. And so I didn't feel, I said, that's not for me. And so it kind of coincided with me becoming a Baha'i. And there was a method of me being able to retire early from this job. I still was active enough to find other job that would be helpful for me to participate in teaching the Baha'i faith or being a part of the Baha'i faith, because I felt like if I join, I want to be able to participate fully, not sit in the, because when they said there were no ministers, okay, that's the responsibility that you're taking on. So if you just read the book and then don't take it out there to others, you haven't done your job. And that impressed me a lot, the fact that there was no ministry. You do it, you join it, you believe it, you teach it, you read it, you study it. Good. So I needed to do that. Plus, it gave me a chance to humble myself in teaching. Because as a nurse, when I was teaching health things to my clients, I knew that I knew, and they didn't. But I had to make them feel that they knew, you know? Yeah, so when the Majidis were instrumental in, with Miss Velma Sherrill and her husband, in providing the funds, she was instrumental in helping us to stock the place with Baha'i literature and books. She had many of them because she was once a counselor. First, we rented the place, and the bookcases, the furniture, and all that was donated by the Majidis. When Velma Sherrill passed, her endowment gave us the privilege of buying it. That's how it was started. And I would go, what's the point in having a center if nobody's there? And so that's why I decided, okay, I'll be the one to go and open it up every day. And it was fruitful. It was very fruitful because we got known in a wider part of the community, began to notice us. And we got invited to join the interfaith at that time as well. And when we went on our travel teaching and invited people in, that was a place. And the teachers of world religion in the schools found out about us. And so we've had a constant request for their students to come and learn about the faith. Past couple of years, we've had this professor from Arkansas who brings his students to St. Louis to attend a gathering of the Baha'is at the Baha'i Center and other faith groups as well in the city, like the Jewish and Hindu and all. But ours is one of the stops that he brought the students to. And they apparently are a world religion class. They studied the faith and they loved it. And we were able to give them refreshments and stuff. And we've had it recorded in our archives at the center, which, by the way, we have an excellent archives of the development of our faith in this area. Now, I had a group that was coming to the center, Friends of the Baha'is, we called them. And it was actually started by Dottie Davidson. And once I became a Baha'i and got interested in it, and I would attend her gatherings, firesides or whatever, that group was very cohesive and very much interested in the faith. Oddly enough, there weren't many that signed up, but they loved being with us. And so when I consulted with one of my Baha'i friends, and I said, I don't understand. They love hearing about it. Why don't they want to sign up for it? And they said, they're just not ready. Said they have to be ready. The transformation has to be there. I said, okay. But they love being around us. And we don't have to have everyone become a Baha'i in order to teach the faith. And I gathered that because after so many times I would hear them teaching faith to others at their job, and I thought, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. It doesn't put any kind of anxiety on us to do all the teaching. Teach one, teach another. Teach one, teach another. That was, I thought, okay, makes sense. And this is such a practical religion for me because it makes no demands on my physical or mental self. It's all volunteer. So to believe and want others to believe or to be a part of that, I find is great bounty. And I can only do it from my point of view and ask them, come along with me. And I have friends who do that now. Every time I say, we're going to have this kind of activity, okay, we're coming. And I appreciate that so much. And I often say that, you have to reciprocate. So when they have things at their church or synagogue or whatever, I would go and attend that. And I made many friends from the different faith groups. I appreciated that because then I asked questions about the faith, and that was a good way to teach. And I always carried a pamphlet or something with me, or a card that would have the prayers on it or something to hand to them. This is the bounty and the uplifting of my spirit that has been so wonderful in my life. You are a spiritual being living a human life, and that God is inside of all of us. The song I have Breathe within thee a breath of my own spirit. That is from the hidden words of Baha'u'llah. And I believe that because he says life begins when the breath of life comes to you. And that's when you leave the womb of the mother. That's why it's such an awesome thing when a woman has a baby. Live by the spirit in you, because it's there. And use prayer to develop that spirit within you.